The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank you, Chair Beatty. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
Thank you very much. And thank you to those who have come today to offer your powerful testimony. I've been thinking a lot about small businesses. I represent suburban Philadelphia, Montgomery and Berks counties right outside of Philadelphia. And building a small business is the dream of many Americans. And I'm particularly interested in what are the obstacles that LGBTQ plus small business owners and entrepreneurs face in engaging the financial system. Maybe Mr. Sears, I could start with you and then maybe go to Mr. Johns.
Sure. Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for the work that you're doing in Philadelphia. I know my friend and colleague Brian Sims is doing a lot of great work in the state as well. So I want to thank you for that support.
In the Pennsylvania House.
He's quite a tremendous leader in our community and in your state. So to your question, I would say several things. I think if you look at the number of, I'll take it out of LGBT for a second, minorities in the United States start more businesses at a rate that's almost double that of the average population. And why is that? Because of discrimination that still exists in the corporate America structure, despite the fact that 92% of Fortune 500 companies have non-discrimination policies, we all live and work in states that don't actually have that as a trickle down. So even the trailing spouses of people who are protected by the Fortune 500 do not experience that same protection in the state in which they live. And so the reason for the small businesses, I think, is number one, based on that. Then when they get into the marketplace, you look at the access to discrimination that still exists, from religious-based discrimination all the way through to refusal of service laws that still allow people to deny service and to deny credit and access to people based on quote unquote sincerely held religious beliefs. And that is something that we have not talked about in this committee yet, but I do think the religious right to discriminate has to be addressed by this committee. It's not directly related as a financial services quote unquote issue, but it is the single largest reason LGBT people experience discrimination in our country. And it's a false choice that we've created. Over half of LGBTQ Americans consider themselves religious. It is not pitting religion against LGBTQ people, but it has impact on small businesses. It has impact on discrimination. It has impact on the laws that Chairwoman Waters mentioned and the transgender community. There were 131 anti-trans bills in 31 state legislatures in our United States in the last 12 months. They were driven by religious animus, marginalizing and demonizing the most vulnerable of our communities, primarily because these young people want to play a sport. So the opportunity for us at the small business level, all the way through the Fortune 500, to eradicate this discrimination, I think, is significant.
I appreciate that. Mr. Johns, did you want to add to that? And I'm interested if you could address maybe the problem of accessing capital.
Yes, ma'am. I'll say three things related to that, and one is just to underscore everything that my colleague said. One, I mentioned a little bit about it in the testimony, but when I think about the experience that our deputy director had with regard to accessing capital for a home loan, often the discrimination and the ability for the financial service provider or the institution to make decisions about capital it is the challenge, right? It is about a person sitting across the desk from another person, or virtually, when we think about COVID, making a determination based on things outside of their financial portfolio, the things that they can otherwise control. And the one thing that I think is most important in this context, acknowledging the point that Congresswoman Waters made about the March CFBP guidance, is that there is no private right of action. And so what we know is that often members of our community are discriminated. We are denied access to capital. We are seldom given actual meaningful reasons for that. And there is no private recourse or private right of action once that happens to members of our community. And so passing the Equality Act, as it has been passed in the House, would address that, and ensuring that future civil rights legislation includes a private right of action would also help to address moments when financial service providers and institutions fail to do the thing that they otherwise should be doing.
I thank you for all of that important information. And finally, Ms. Walker, I'll address this to you. I read a very shameful statistic. According to our Philadelphia Inquirer, 40% or more of people aged 18 to 26 in Philadelphia, which is my neighboring district and it is my home city, who experience homelessness identify as LGBTQ. Think about that. 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ. What a shameful statistic for our country. Ms. Walker, what are the best practices for assisting LGBTQ plus youth to become connected to permanent housing?
Well, first of all, we need to meet the youth where they are. I worked with Housing Works here in New York City, and we used a harm reduction approach to meeting with the youth. And also, we need shelters and transitional and permanent housing with wraparound services in these shelters and in this transitional housing to support this youth, to make sure they're getting they're getting their nutrition, they're getting their
I
their
apologize. My time has expired,
Your
but I
time
would
has-
love to, I yield back, but I'd love to get more information from you offline.
thank you.
Again, to the witness, thank you. You're going to be very popular as well as the other witnesses with us today.